Alright guys, before we start the video, I just wanted to remind you, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And if you're feeling generous, hit up the store, the merch store that is, and buy yourself some cool merch. Lots of new designs in there. Every day, throwing 1 or 2 new designs in. Help support the channel, and that's going to be the best way, especially if you're not into that Patreon and that local stuff. Buy some merch, support the channel, help us get better equipment, cool gadgets, and of course, you know, other things. Alright, on with the video, guys. Alright everyone, welcome to another episode in my backyard. In fact, it's in the dog run. I need a drink. It's like 82 degrees. Some people may say it's too hot for coffee. I won't, but I had a Monster, so I wanted to drink that instead. Alright, let's get on with the video. So today, I wanted to discuss the types of ammo you should buy and why you should buy it. This is all culminating from actually a class I taught yesterday where there was a lot of confusion in why you would buy one ammo over the other, and so I figured I'd address it out of the blue. Yes, I know I am wearing a salmon polo. In fact, I am also wearing khaki shorts. The missus and I decided to go out this morning. Ran out to IKEA. I was having a craving for Swedish meatballs for some reason after seeing them in a TikTok. And she calls this my Mark McCloskey outfit because that's what I look like. Pink polo and khakis. So I'm sure people are going to comment about it. Alright, but without further ado, we're going to be talking about the 3 main calibers most people are going to deal with for, say, home defense or everyday carry, things like that. We're not going to be talking about the weird, obscure, like, give me around the 318 Wesley Richards. Ain't nobody using that for home defense. Alright, and if you don't know what that is, it's a caliber for a big game gun. It's a British thing. So, alright, we're going to be talking about 9mm, which is NATO, 5.56, that too is NATO, and 12 gauge, which is also NATO, because I prefer NATO rounds since they're always readily available. I made a few notes because there's a lot of information on this stuff, so if you see me looking down, it's going to be looking at notes. So you can open up a little ammo can. It's kind of hard to walk around with a bunch of different types of ammo, but let's start with the most basic caliber out there. It's what most people are going to have, and that is going to be 9mm. Alright, that's the most widely used caliber. 9mm Luger or 9mm Parabellum or 9x19mm, depending on what you want to call it or whatever. There's several types of ammo out there, but the most common that we find is your standard ball ammo, right? It's FMJ, so full metal jacket, right? Copper coating on the outside, soft lead core. We use it at the range. We shoot a lot of it. Military, we call it ball ammo. All right, that is not for home defense. That will punch through your walls with relative ease. Stay away from that. All right, even everyday carry, stay away from your FMJs. All right, for everyday carry, I prefer, this just happens to be a box because it's almost time for me to rotate my ammo out, since I have to rotate my EDC ammo every 6 months. I've got some Hornady critical defense. This is not bad. It's good. If I prefer Spear Gold Dot, if I can get my hands on it. I think I have maybe 10 boxes left of it, so I might load that instead of the critical defense. Critical defense just happened to be on top. Can't go wrong with that. It's good, but again, if it's everyday carry, it's only going to last you about 6 months. You're going to have to rotate that ammo out because it's being exposed to clothing and you and inside and outside, heat, humidity, the AC, everything. So it starts to look a little cheesy after about 6 months. So just swap it out. All right, don't hold on to it forever. When it starts to look a little weird, time to rotate it out. I prefer doing mine First day of summer, first day of winter. Rotate out to a brand new box. All right, this is a box of 20, and it kind of works out for me in the state of Connecticut, since I'm only allowed magazines that hold 10. So if you live in a normal state where your magazines hold 20 rounds altogether, like say you own a P320, then one box is going to get you one magazine. Well, I carry more than one magazine because one is none. So it's going to cost you a little bit more. And defense ammo can be expensive. So I'm just letting you know, FMJ is usually cheaper. And I know I've run into people that use FMJ for everyday carry, which I recommend they don't. But what do I know? All right, next up, outside of the 9mm pistol, is going to be 5.56, a carbine of some sort. For me, that is a primary, my sidearm, my pistol, a handgun, whatever you want to call it, for me is always going to be backup. That's, for me to get to the primary, my primary is an AR-15 or Connecticut Other. They are illegal now. If you have it, you can keep it, but you can't transfer it, and there's a bunch of other stuff. And I talked about it in a previous video with, HB 6667. But say you're using one for home defense, because honestly, it's probably the best firearm to have for home defense. You've got to be careful. You're sending rounds really fast downrange, so into your target, and it's going to punch through a lot of stuff. So be mindful of where you're shooting. All right. The last thing you want to do is send a round into your neighbor's house. That being said, you have to pick the right ammo. All right, and there is a ton of it out there. And we sell, where I work, we sell a bunch of it, and each one has its own unique purpose. All right. First up is going to be M193, which is FMJ 5.56. All right, standard, again, copper coated, lead core, not ideal for home defense. Good for the range, but I wouldn't use it for home defense. I mean, you could use it for, the zombie apocalypse, everything falls apart. It's going to be cheaper, but I wouldn't use that for home defense. When it comes to home defense, there's a couple of good options out there. For me, I either would use something like a varmint round, which, if you don't know what that is, it is basically, it becomes a giant hollow point. Because you can buy regular hollow point 5.56, but it's really small. So this, you can see it's got that little red tip. That's just plastic. It gets ripped away as soon as it hits something. And it's a massive hollow point. It's definitely gonna make a hole in something. It's gonna make a really big hole. We've done ballistic tests with it, and it drives a massive cone. So it goes in like a 22, but it comes out in this massive cone. The other ammo I prefer would be the Z5.56 and X1. You're like, what is that? That is a frangible round. It is partially jacketed, so the tip of it is frangible, and I mean the whole thing is pretty much frangible, but it is copper jacketed. I like this because when it hits, it dissipates, it falls apart, disintegrates, what have you. It's good. I mean, if that's what you're gonna run, good. Unfortunately, a lot of it is out of stock. Every time I search for it online, it's always out of stock. I was lucky enough to where a gentleman brought a bunch in to where I work, and he didn't want it anymore. He goes, well, I have no use for it. So he sold it to us. Dirt cheap, and it never even left the table. I just turned around and paid just a wee bit more for it and took it all home. Right? So there's a bunch of boxes of it because I like that ammo. Ammo to avoid when dealing with 5.56 for home defense. Definitely M855. That's your green tip. It's got a steel penetrating tip on it, and that's going to go through everything. That's more used for hitting the bad guy hiding behind a refrigerator in your neighbor's house while you're still in your own house. So let's not use that. Same goes with black tips. Now this black tip is not what a lot of people would think is a black tip. When you look it up, it's going to be like, they call it armor piercing. All right, this is XM777, which is just like a green tip, and it lost out to the green tip. That's all it is. All right, what people are talking about when they think of black tips is M995, which is got a tungsten core. As far as I know, I don't even think you can own that. And you're looking, I saw some estimates, it's like $40 a round because you're paying for that tungsten. All right, stick to the M193 for the range. Stay away from M855. Stick to XM777, which is your frangible. There you go. That's it. Or varmint rounds if you can find them. There is no designation, as far as I know, for a varmint round. Most of them are going to be 223. They don't come in 556 that I've seen. I could be wrong. I don't know. I know one I didn't talk about with 9mm is frangible. Good luck finding it. It's expensive. It's hard to find. But I do have frangible 9mm, and that I would run in my home for home defense. But you're more apt to find your defensive rounds or your hollow points. That's why I covered that one. I didn't go into the frangible rounds. But if you find them, they look weird. They look like Phillips head screwdriver tips, and they're like a dark brown because they're made out of compressed metal powder, and when they hit, they, disintegrate. The other caliber that is most synonymous with home defense is your 12 gauge. Now, 12 gauge comes in many shapes and many loads. I know people that swear up and down they're going to use standard bird shot. Okay, for me, standard bird shot. Yes, at a close range, it's going to do what it does. Unfortunately, it's birdshot. You're going to pepper somebody, all right? And if you've decided to go forth and engage, the last thing you want to do is pepper somebody with something like that. If they're that much of a threat, you've got to end that threat. So, some people will choose double-aught buck. And double-aught buck is going to go through everything, including the bad guy. And double-aught buck at 3 yards is going to remove chunks of the bad guy. It will overpenetrate. It will hit your neighbor's home, depending how close your neighbors are. Me, I live in the suburbs. My neighbors are literally like 10 yards away. Or they opt for something like a slug. Again, the slug is going to definitely overpenetrate, and it's got a lot of kick to it. So in a close quarters scenario, using a slug, it's a little overkill. All right, I would prefer to use a breaching round. Yeah, it's good for close quarters. It's designed obviously for blowing apart door locks and hinges, but it's a frangible round. So when it hits something, it is going to basically explode on impact and just turn to dust, because it's just compacted iron dust. Which is why we don't use slugs or double-aught buck for breaching. We don't want to die, because all that's going to come back at you, versus that frangible or the breaching round is just going to explode, turn to dust. All right. Sometimes you can find something that's intermediate. Again, I would not use this for home defense unless I was really desperate, just because of overpenetration. And that is going to be the you can find them online, but it's the Special Forces short magnum shotgun shell. They look odd. People are like, oh, you can breach with them and all that. It's lead, and I don't know if you can see, but you can see the rifled part, and it's good for a according to the manufacturer, you can use this in smoothbore or rifled shotguns. But even the follower there is attached to the slug, so even that's going to hit. I would not use this for breaching. Home defense, maybe. I found it online. You can get it. I was fortunate enough to get this from work. We had Mossberg there testing some guns, and that's what they were using, and they were kind and generous enough to donate a box to me. I love knowing people. So that's pretty much what you're going to run into for common calibers. All right, it's going to be 9mm, your 5.56, and your 12 gauge. Basically, you have 3 gun options. The 9mm is good for poking holes in people. The 5.56 is good for poking holes through people, and 12 gauge is good for removing chunks of shit from people. So that's pretty much how the guns work. Now, if you have a wife like mine who's OCD about cleanliness in her kitchen, and that just happens to be the area you engage in, and you decide you're going to use double-aught buck at 3 yards in that kitchen, that is a mess I would not want to be near, okay? I don't even think going to Serve Pro and having them come in to try and clean that mess up would work. That's one of those just turn the lights off, lock the door, and walk away type scenarios. That is bad. And I know you all have a mental image of it, but those are the things I think of when I'm setting up for home defense. Stick to the frangibles and the defense rounds. I'm trying to avoid over-penetration. But honestly, and this goes more into coming up with a home defense plan, which we plan on doing a video on later. But what I always preach to my students, when you're thinking about this, like, what should I do for home defense? If you're standing in your home with a gun and you're preparing to do battle with that bad guy that broke in, you're kind of behind the power curve. I don't want to say you're an absolute failure, but there's a lot of things you could have done prior, okay? Like lights, motion sensors, security systems, the Ring doorbell system. Basically, have the exterior of your house scream to the bad guy, go rob my neighbor. That's how my house is set up. Cameras, lights, everything, alarm system, and it screams, go rob my neighbor. Most of my neighborhood is set up like that. There's a few houses that are black holes, and they seem to get hit every now and then. You know, it sucks, but if you do your due diligence, you can set your home up to keep the bad guys away. Now, if they don't care about any of that, I mean, that's a lot of work to get through it. If they decide, no matter how many lights you have, the alarm system, the reinforced doors, all of that, they're still coming in, they're dead set on something that's not just common burglary. And at that point, you do what you got to do. Just saying, you call 911, good. I don't know about where you live, but where I live, average response times anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes. And I'm in the suburbs, and we have a lot of cops on the payroll, but I never really see any. I don't know where they are. They're probably on the other end of town where it's not so friendly. But there's other towns where we live where they have no police department. They have a what they call a resident state trooper, because it's more of a rural town, and you're pretty much on your own till they get there. And they could be 15 minutes out, 20 minutes out, especially if they're on the other side of Higabama. It's Higganum, but I call it Higabama because we're in Connecticut, and when you go to Higganum, it's like going to like rural Alabama in the Northeast. It's weird. But again, long response times. So now you're on your own. You are your own first responder. do what you gotta do. Survive. Barricade, call the authorities, and take it from there. Alright, but that's enough. That's just my little rant on different types of calibers. You got to figure out what you're trying to do with it. Know the type of ammo you're trying to buy, because if it's self-defense, you definitely want to stay away from that FMJ. So make sure you're buying the right ammo for the right job. Alright? It's that simple, guys. If you have any questions, ask somebody. Ask your local gun store. Ask them what would be best for this. Definitely get training. Take a defensive handgun or a defensive rifle course. If you live in an area where they offer CQC, CQB courses, great, you should take them. Hopefully you have an area where they do force-on-force training with either airsoft or sim rounds. I'll tell you right now, airsoft is a little more forgiving. It doesn't hurt as much as the sim rounds. Sim rounds will definitely hurt. I know I've been hit with sim rounds before. It's unpleasant. So get your training, learn to lay it out of your house, run lots of dry drills, make sure you're all on the same page. If you have a family, everyone should have a game plan, right? The last thing you want is someone wandering around your house, like child-wise, because they heard something go bump and you're trying to do your thing and they come out. They're more of a detriment at that point. So pick the right caliber, pick the right type of ammunition, and prep yourself. That's all I got to say. You guys have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm going to go hang out with the family, maybe do a little barbecuing, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. You guys have a great day.